Okay, let's unpack this. You shared a fascinating stack of source material. These are excerpts from Paul Auster's novel Sunset Park.
That's right.
And our mission for this deep dive, really, is to sift through these pages, pull out the key stories, the connections, the insights,
Hmm.
and help you see this intricate web of lives woven together in the narrative.
Exactly. We're going to explore some pretty complex family dynamics, this unexpected turns of fate, a bit about the world of art and publishing,
Right.
and just the sometimes messy reality of human relationships, all through the lens of this specific group of characters.
Think of it as maybe a shortcut, a way to get to the heart of this story, highlighting the moments that might stick with you.
Yeah, long after we're done talking about it.
So let's jump right in. We should probably start with the setting, the physical space where a lot of this happens.
Okay, so it's this abandoned house in Brooklyn, Sunset Park neighborhood.
Right across from Greenwood Cemetery, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And this house, it becomes this unlikely home for a group of squatters. You've got Bing, Alice, and Ellen first.
And Miles joins them a bit later.
Right. And their situation, well, it's a direct result of what the sources call the New Depression.
Right. Yeah, these tough economic times just force them into, finding somewhere else to live.
And the house itself is, oh, well, it's a mess. Dust, soot everywhere, water stains, cracked linoleum.
Sounds pretty grim.
Right.
Splintered floors, critters.
Yeah, definitely grim. But somehow the plumbing's intact, sort of. Brown water, but it works.
And they even had power for a bit. And heat.
For a while, yeah. Due to what the source calls a glitch in the system. Kind of lucky, I guess.
And Bing is the one who kind of holds it together at first.
It seems that way. He's the unofficial leader, has some practical skills, and he's the one who actually initiated the move, found the place.
So there's this shared sense of, precariousness holding them together, living under the constant threat of eviction.
Absolutely. But within that, different personalities clash. There are tensions. They sort of fall into roles to make it function.
Right. Miles becomes the handyman janitor type.
Ellen does the cleaning. Alice handles shopping and cooking.
And the kitchen ends up being the main communal space, which makes sense.
Yeah, the hub.
So while he's living in this sort of limbo, Miles develops these routines. He wanders the streets of Sunset Park.
Finds it kind of dead, as the source puts it, like lacking banks or bookstores, mostly just check-cashing places, a rundown library.
But his real escape, maybe his way of processing things, is Greenwood Cemetery.
Across the street, yeah. He goes there every day with his camera. It's a place to pass time. He sees it as this useless project.
Useless. I don't know, the facts he digs up there are just fascinating.
Well, yeah, objectively they are. He's learning about inventors like Elias Howe, the Camphor brothers.
Henry Steinway, the piano guy. John Underwood, typewriters. Henry Chadwick, baseball.
Right. He even finds out Frank Morgan, the Wizard of Oz, his real name was Frank Wupperman.
Get Out. And the cremations list, too. Steinbeck, Woody Guthrie, Edward R. Murrow.
It's this whole rich, slightly morbid tapestry of history he's uncovering.
It really makes you wonder what he's actually searching for there, among all the, the dead.
Seems like a search for meaning, maybe. Connection, when his own life feels so adrift.
And amidst all that, his connection to Pilar, back in Florida, is this constant anchor.
Those daily phone calls, lasting between 1 and 2 hours, the source says. Clearly a lifeline.
Which brings us to Pilar. And there's this incredibly striking detail right at the start of their relationship description.
Oh, the boundary she sets.
The mommy hole being absolutely forbidden, she calls it, because of this deep fear of pregnancy. Comes from her sister Teresa's really bad experience.
And the funny hole is the alternative. It's a very direct way the source introduces that theme of the human body and how it's tied up with anxiety and boundary.
It really is. Tells you so much about her vulnerability, her past trauma, right away.
Definitely. So when she visits him in New York, it's her first time ever leaving Florida.
Miles is worried she'll be totally intimidated, right?
Yeah, but she completely surprises him. She's done her homework guidebooks, history, she's got the right gear for the weather.
Becomes Nanook of the North. I love that description.
It's great, but they don't spend much time at the squat.
No, the house frightened her, it says. So they stick mostly to Manhattan.
Yeah, finding cheap restaurants and spending apparently 90% of their time just in his tiny room.
Making love or sleeping. Sounds intense.
Very. There are brief interactions with the others, breakfast, accidental meetings. They watched The Best Years of Our Lives with Alice once.
But Miles is super protective.
Right.
Doesn't want anyone judging her because she looks young.
Right. But Alice, who seems pretty sharp,
Yeah.
she picks up on Pilar's intelligence pretty quickly just from a few chats they have at the kitchen table. Cuts right through Miles's protectiveness.
Meanwhile, back in Florida, Pilar's dealing with her own stuff, trying to be independent.
Living alone for the first time described as difficult days. And there's this strain with your older sister Angela. She avoids the family house.
Bored with school, too, thinks the other students are idiots.
But she keeps going partly for Miles, doesn't want to disappoint him. She's careful with money, worrying about a car repair.
And becoming a little less pathetic as a cook. It shows her trying.
Yeah, she's trying to build something even from far away. And they do have a plan, a light at the end of the tunnel.
Miles's father, Morris, he's offered them a place.
Right, in his apartment on Downing Street, after Miles's release date comes up, specifically so Pilar won't have to stay in the squat.
Okay, so this is the perfect bridge to Miles's past, his family, which is
Understatement, yeah. He grew up in a blended family. His dad married Bobby's mother, Willa Parks.
And the source mentions these invisible fault lines. Each boy primarily loyal to their own biological parent.
And the ghost of Willa's first husband, Carl Nordstrom, is always kind of there. Bobby kept his last name, Nordstrom.
So it sets up this inherent tension, even beneath normal sibling stuff.
Absolutely. They had conflicts, often physical. Then Miles got bigger, taller, heavier than Bobby, which shifted the dynamic again.
And Bobby really resented Miles's academic success, didn't he?
Deeply. Saw Miles as the stick-in-the-mud Heller, while he was the bad boy Nordstrom. Felt like the outcast of the Holy Four in the family.
You really feel that resentment boil over in that flashback. The fight on the road in the Berkshires.
Oh, yeah. Brutal scene. The heat, the bugs. Miles is in a foul mood, insults Bobby.
And Bobby goes from sort of nonchalant to just belligerent.
And Miles pushes him. Thinks about how pushing him into the road, into traffic, was the key difference. It's chilling.
The argument just digs up everything, all the buried family issues. Bobby saying he feels like an outcast, hating his mom's attachment to Miles.
Sick of hearing about academic conferences and publishing deals. It's raw.
And it foreshadows the tragedy, doesn't it? Bobby's death in an accident 12 years before the story starts.
Described as absolute devastation for Miles. Caused him to just close in on himself. It's clearly one of the major wounds he carries.
Speaking of wounds, let's talk about Miles's father, Morris Heller, the publisher.
Right. The source gives us these really nice childhood memories. Breakfasts, talking baseball, Miles pitching.
And that paper Miles wrote as a kid on To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, focusing on how wounds are essential to becoming a man. Morris was really impressed by his analytical mind even then.
Which is so poignant, considering everything later, especially how Miles reacted to Bobby's death.
Morris thinks Miles quitting pitching in junior year was directly because of that grief, that it demanded a sacrifice.
And the estrangement later, when Miles dropped out of college. Morris didn't see it as burnout.
No, he saw it as a hostile act of revenge and self-sabotage, a symbolic suicide.
Oof. So long history of disconnect there. Miles even tries calling him when he first gets back to New York, but can't get through.
But they eventually do reconnect, have that dinner, and they fall back on familiar ground, talking baseball.
Herb score, Mark Fidrich, connecting through that shared history.
Meanwhile, Morris's own world is under pressure. His publishing house is struggling. The ship is still afloat, but listing.
Has to cut the book list, needs an investor. 2008 was apparently the worst year in decades. But he's determined to keep his staff.
You see his resilience, finding nourishment in his role despite the potential collapse. And he also had a recent health scare in England.
A brief chat with death, as he puts it.
Which seems to have given him some perspective. Makes the business problems feel less all-consuming.
And despite their difficult past, he's the one who offers Miles and Pilar that lifeline, the place to stay.
Yeah. Then there's Miles's mother, Mary Lee Cannobio, the actress.
And the source sets up this interesting dynamic. Miles seeing her as his blood mother, but Willa, his stepmother, as his real mother.
Mary Lee's described as unpredictable, a chameleon. Reinvented herself through theater, film, TV, couple of marriages.
Douglas Flaherty, the amiable stepfather. And then Simon Korngold, her husband for 17 years, producer turned professor.
Some of those anecdotes about her are just, wow. Asking 12-year-old Miles to undress so she can check his development.
And saying, promising Miles, but still a long way to go. Yikes.
And then the party incident when he's 15. She finds him reading, yells at him for being just like your father, turned into a bill.
But it ends with that weirdly vulnerable moment, right? Shared laughter, her admitting she's acting like a real bitch.
Shows her volatility, but also maybe that unexpected tenderness underneath.
Her reunion with Miles after he disappears sounds equally dramatic, calls him a no-good shithead.
Then she cried. Then they both cried.
And you see her completely immersed in her art later, doing Beckett's Happy Days, gaining weight for the role, finding the language gorgeous.
Miles watches her perform, sees that superabundance of adrenaline, and afterwards, he sees his father quietly embrace her.
That moment between Morris and Mary Lee is really telling. They started as this unlikely couple, so different.
Morris sees her now as, offstage, an attractive but wholly ordinary woman. But he recognizes her power as an actress, that she carries all humanity inside her.
He reflects on their failed marriage, but seems to admire Simon Korngold, her current husband. Feels he rescued her, stabilized her, got rid of the vodka bottles and the pill bottles.
Right. They're not enemies anymore. Miles' disappearance kind of made them allies in that crisis.
So you have all these incredibly complex individual lives, right? Grappling with their pasts, their wounds, but their stories are so deeply intertwined.
And you see how art, writing, performance just runs through everything. Morris in publishing, Alice with her dissertation and her work at PE.
Defending writers, yeah. The Luz Diabo campaign is mentioned.
And Ellen, the struggling artist, her disturbing mental images drawing naked bodies to capture the strangeness of being alive, even uses Bing as a model.
And Mary Lee's acting, that total immersion. Renzo Michelson, the author figure, connects these worlds too.
It's just a story filled with people trying to create something, art, books, just a stable life in a world that feels like it's falling apart.
Which brings us back to that economic downturn.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's why they're squatting, why parents clip coupons.
Miles has no money. Morris's business is struggling. Korngold's film business collapsed, forcing him to teach. It affects everyone.
And moving through it all is this sense of fate, luck, resilience.
Yeah, those baseball stories. Herb score, career cut short by a line drive. Lucky Lork, surviving multiple near-death things.
Morris and Miles use them to grapple with how unpredictable life is.
It echoes that childhood thought of Miles's that wounds are essential, implying that how you endure misfortune is what shapes you.
And the human body itself is almost its own character here.
Definitely. Taylor's boundaries, Ellen's focus on drawing bodies, her own feelings about her weight or physical fantasies.
That moment after holding her twin nephews, realizing the body needs other bodies, needs touch, has skin, it's powerful.
Mary Lee changing her body for the role, Miles reflecting on seeing dead bodies, his father, Bobby, his mother. It all underscores vulnerability, connection, physicality.
So all these threads, family, art, fate, the body, the economy, they keep leading back to the squat. And that situation is getting tense.
Yeah, the eviction notices are piling up. They get a fourth one.
And after the third one, Alice and Ellen decide they've had enough.
They make the call to leave before the next one arrives.
But Miles plans to stay. He's holding out for his release date, April 22nd. Then he can move in with his dad, with Pilar.
Bing apparently went into a rage when Alice and Ellen told him they were leaving, but they held firm.
And Miles, he feels this loyalty. Doesn't want to just abandon Bing, even though it's all falling apart. He just needs those last, 20 days?
But he doesn't get them.
No, the climax is sudden, violent. Early morning knock on the door, loud, insistent.
Miles is asleep downstairs, but the noise wakes him. It's chaos.
Ellen opened the door, felt she didn't have a choice.
Miles hears heavy footsteps upstairs shouting, "Bing, Alice, cops!" He gets up there.
Sees Alice struggling with a cop near the stairs. Sees Bing in handcuffs being manhandled.
And then the turning point. The cop pushes Alice down the stairs.
Her head hits a step.
And Miles just reacts. Pute impulse. Punches the cop right in the jaw. He and Ellen just run. They bolt from the house. Their refuge is gone, invaded.
Where do they go?
Greenwood Cemetery. Obvious place, right across the street.
They have nothing. No phones.
Nothing. No idea what happened to Bing or Alice, arrested, injured. Miles is described as too stunned. Ellen can't cry, just angry, asking Miles to hold her.
And everything left behind. Alice's dissertation.
Ellen's drawings, Bing's drums, all gone.
Wow. So the immediate aftermath.
They find temporary shelter. Ben Samuel's apartment, a guy Ellen used to tutor.
Ellen makes food. Miles needs ice for his hand, the one he punched the cop with.
Right. He tries to call Pilar, but she's at school, phone off. Tries his godfather, Renzo Michelson, gets the machine.
And he really doesn't want to call his father.
No. Morris is the last person in the world he wants to turn to.
But Morris finds out anyway.
Ellen calls him. And the conversation between Morris and Miles is stark.
What does Morris say?
First words are basically, two detectives came. You broke a policeman's jaw. Is that true?
Oh, God. Miles must feel completely crushed.
Totally. Like a boy without hands, needing his father again, reflects on his angry punching hands, his angry pushing hands, always causing trouble.
Morris steps up.
Immediately offers legal help, says he knows some damn good lawyers.
That drive across the Brooklyn Bridge with his father must have been just agonizing.
He's in despair, thinks he's ruined everything, no future with Pillar, feels homeless, thinks about Alice and Bing being homeless, the people whose houses he trashed being homeless.
Compares seeing his father again to Odysseus and Telemachus,
Yeah.
this difficult return.
Yeah, and thinking about missing buildings and the missing hands, he makes this decision, this really bleak decision.
To stop hoping.
To stop hoping for a future, to just live for the passing moment, give up on expectation.
So we've traced these threads through the excerpts: family, baseball, art, publishing, love, loss, the economy, all converging in these chaotic lives, especially Miles.
Yeah, we've seen the weight of the past, that search for identity, for connection, even amid disconnection.
And the impact of choices, but also just sudden chaotic events. It really gives you a glimpse into how unpredictable life is.
Moments of intimacy right next to conflict, displacement, those lasting wounds, physical and emotional.
Which brings up that question from Miles' childhood paper again. If wounds are essential to becoming, well, what does that mean for these characters who seem almost defined by their wounds and struggles?
Right, and what happens when your attempt to build something new, like the squatters trying to forge a life, just gets violently interrupted by the very system you're trying to hide from? It really leaves you thinking about that line between, I don't know, sacrifice and just inescapable fate.